Okay, and here we go. This is Talk Belief News, and this is going to be a kind of early Halloween edition because that's coming up. And as you know, Neil, the Christians out there are excited about Halloween, don't you think?
They seem confused about Halloween.
Well, we've got a few things we want to talk about in terms of this. But before we get into the whole Halloween versus Christianity thing, what have you been up to lately, Neil?
So we're getting our Facebook page going, our YouTube, and a website coming soon called Reason Now. And so Reason, Science and Evidence. And people ask why Reason Now is, and I always say because to get through this shit, we're going to need reason, science and evidence.
Which isn't always in evidence in the world, is it?
No, unfortunately, with the challenges of climate change and that, we've got to speed up the progress of reasonable thinking.
Absolutely. And speaking of reasonable thinking or lack thereof, Creationist Ken Ham. Now, we're going to start off with this story first, and I'm looking at this article from Raw Story. Creationist Ken Ham plans to ruin Halloween by making kids learn about Jesus in exchange for candy. Yes, you've heard right. And if you don't know who Ken Ham is, he is the man who instigated the entire Creationist Museum in Kentucky, where people ride dinosaurs, where Adam and Eve started off the whole shebang, and where evolution is totally wrong and totally evil. And now he's followed that up with a life-size Noah's Ark, which hasn't made as much money as he was hoping. And to top it all off, he's now saying that Halloween really should be about Jesus.
Yeah, he seems to be determined to piss some parents off. He's recommending that when people turn up to your door with their children, rather than giving them candy, you start preaching the gospel to them.
Yeah, it says here that Ken Ham, the man behind the infamous Ark Encounter Creationist Museum, has unveiled a plan to help his followers spread the word of the Gospels to trick-or-treaters this year. In a new blog post on his Answers in Genesis website, Ham implores his supporters to think about sharing Christ with trick-or-treaters this year, while offering several suggestions for ways to properly educate your neighborhood children about the Gospels. There's a few things he suggests that you should be able to do.
And the first one, funnily enough, is to buy something from his website.
Surely not. What is this thing?
It's a Halloween Learn and Share kit, a bargain price of only $17.99. And this includes a biblical and historical look at Halloween, a Halloween Paganism and the Bible leaflet, and some good old gospel tracts.
Oh my gosh. Well, every kid will want that, obviously. And he also recommends using a tactic called reverse trick-or-treating. And this is bringing baked goods directly to neighbors' houses on Halloween and then hitting them up with a pitch about Jesus. So it's okay to go out for Halloween as long as you preach the gospel when you get to the house.
Yeah, and as our friend at Friendly Atheist says, there's no price on ruining someone else's Halloween.
And before we go any further into this, let's just listen to the man himself. This is Ken Ham on his Answers in Genesis news from his own website.
Hey, somebody here says, please, please, please ruin Halloween. Good. That's what we're trying to do.
Let's ruin
and the atheists know that.
Let's take it back.
They reckon, yeah, let's take it back.
That's right.
In fact, you got a DVD on the origin of Halloween, haven't you?
You know, I do. A lot of people, they just don't understand, the roots of Halloween. Halloween actually goes back to a Celtic festival called Samhain, is how it's pronounced. It was the Day of the Dead. In fact, Rome had a Day of the Dead. They fueled each other. Places all over the world have a Day of the Dead. Mexico is famous for one. There's one in Japan called the Bon Festival. China has the Ghost Festival. They're all over the world, and a lot of them are actually about the same time of the year, which is interesting because it probably goes back to a time when all the cultures were connected. Hey, what event was a yearly event where sacrifices took place from Genesis 3 through the time of the flood up to the Tower of Babel before people went all over the world? Sacrifice.
Yeah,
what it is
the first blood sacrifice was in Genesis when God gave post because of sin.
Noah offered sacrifices after the flood. Abel did. Abraham did, even after all that time.
The origins of Halloween could go back to that?
It could go back that far, and what's happened is as it went to different parts of the world, it has been perverted, it's been paganized, it's been destroyed, and now people don't understand the true meaning of sacrifice, which the Bible clearly talks about. And Jesus Christ is that final sacrifice. That's why you don't have to sacrifice anymore.
So we need,
He's the final.
at Halloween, use Halloween as a time to tell people what death death is all about, penalty for sin, Christ's death and resurrection, and use it as a time to present the gospel.
That's exactly right.
And ruin
Halloween. That's right.
Halloween.
Take it back for Christ.
Yeah, that's what the atheists are worried about. So, okay.
Okay, Neil, so now you know.
Now we know he actually intends to ruin Halloween for kids. I mean, what a dick move.
Yes, because as you know, they're very much against anything to do with sacrifice. But two things come to mind. First of all, Halloween isn't about sacrifice. And B, Christianity is all about blood sacrifice.
Yeah.
I.e. their savior.
Christianity is a blood death cult, effectively. So,
yeah.
But he also said, let's take back Halloween. And then tried to make some spurious claims that maybe Halloween went back before the Tower of Babel and all that stuff. But that's just absolute nonsense. We know exactly where Halloween came from. It came from a Celtic festival.
Yeah.
The Celts knew nothing about the Old Testament. And basically, it's just the end of a season. If you hadn't got your crops out of the ground by then, they started withering and dying in the ground. And they celebrated it with wearing masks of animal heads and that.
Yeah, it goes back to Ireland. And like he got it right. It was called Samhain, which just basically means November. And it was all to do with agriculture. You know, winter was a rough time. People were thinking about their mortality, and it was like the last day of harvest and the first day of winter, and that sort of boundary between the worlds was considered, you know, it was getting thinner, and all sorts of weird and wonderful things could step through that boundary. Some of those things were quite scary, and so, as far as they were concerned, the dead walked again that night. They weren't all friendly, so you needed to placate them, and that's where the idea of leaving food and sweets outside to appease them, that's where that came from.
Indeed, so it's a complete dick move to try to rewrite history and claim it for Christianity, because it's well documented that Christianity actually tried to bring Halloween into their festivals in the 7th and 8th century by introducing All Saints' Day on November the 1st and All Souls' Day on November the 2nd. So he's just a history revisionist, I guess, and but what's it surprise you? It's Ken Ham. He's a dick.
Yeah, and they always. I mean, I grew up in America, as you know, and Halloween was a very, very big thing. I think it still is over there, not so much as it is here in England. But I was always being told by my church and everything that it's, you know, Halloween is the day for Satan and all that kind of thing. But Halloween's origins, as you said, are pagan. It has nothing to do with Satanism. Satan is a purely Christian concept, isn't he?
It's a Christian concept, another bit of fiction, and it's really funny to see the people on Charisma News almost having an orgasm, the fact that they've got a former Satan worshipper. He's saying that he was glad when he was a Satanist that the Christian parents let their children worship the devil at least one night out of the year, and it would let them open up the house to the devil. And I know a lot of Christians in America, well, certainly evangelicals, think that atheists are devil worshippers. We're not. We think the sky fairy is just as stupid as the underground fairy that's burning a little bit too much.
Atheist means you don't believe in gods or supernatural beings, including devils.
Yeah, exactly. So
you would hardly worship one.
It's funny because the Satanists have usurped it for themselves, pagan festivals themselves. The Christians are trying to claim it as their own now as well.
And who is this guy again? What's his name?
His name is Anton LaVey.
Okay. Anton LaVey. I have a feeling I've heard that. Do you think he's genuine, or is this another one of these Christian urban myths?
He's claiming to have, as far as I can tell, have converted to Christianity, and he's trying to warn Christians about the stuff he used to do when he was a Satan worshipper, which would have led to exactly nothing.
Yeah.
I guess the only thing I would say if to warn people about Halloween is just make sure your kids are accompanied by an adult. Maybe.
Sure.
So they are safe when they're going out trick-and-treating. Believe me, if any harm comes to them, it's not going to be because of any sky fairy or devil god guy who, I don't know what he's doing down there. He doesn't kill as many people as God, though, in the Bible, so he's not as bad.
Well, let me see. Satan, I think in the Bible, he kills about 10 people or 11.
Well, yeah, about 10, probably.
And if we look at Yahweh, just taking everything into account, including the whole world during the flood. No, I've lost count. What, millions perhaps?
Yeah, well, take the fact that he killed everything. Babies, puppies, everything. Take that one out. I think someone did a count up and it was over 2 million people that he killed or ordered to be killed in the Bible story. Let's keep saying the Bible story, just in case Christians think this is real.
But that's righteous genocide, Neil.
Yeah, genocide's good when...
If he himself, the man himself, declares it, that's fine.
When it's on your side, we all love a bit of genocide. No, we don't. Just to be clear, no, we don't. Bloody ridiculous.
But do you think these, Ken Ham was talking about taking back Halloween. Do you think that's what these hell houses are all about? Have you heard of these?
I was only introduced to them a few years ago. They're not a thing in the UK, but there's a documentary about it.
Yeah, there's a documentary came out in 2001, I think it was. Sort of a fly on the wall documentary. I don't know if it was by an atheist or not. I think it was. Well, if you don't know what these are, hell houses are haunted attractions typically run by Christian churches, and it's an alternative to the sort of haunted house you might go to on Halloween night, except you are herded through room after room where you see usually Christian youth who are doing little skits about Christian interpretations of sin. So you'll go through one room and there'll be somebody having an abortion too young. You'll go through another room and it'll be kids involved in rave culture and being exposed to drugs. Into another room where there'll be a gay couple and one of them's dying from AIDS. Unbelievable that they do this.
It's even worse than that. They did, one of the scenes in the documentary, they didn't show the scene, but they clearly stated this was a scene. They depict a rape and try to blame the person who's been raped on her actions that day and because she didn't love Jesus. Holy shit. Yeah.
Get the kids, and they line up. I know if this was happening in this country, we'd line up for it as well, but for the wrong reasons. They get them in there, and they herd them through these various rooms, and by the end of it, you are shown a depiction of heaven. Like, this is what you can have, or you could have a sinful life and miss out altogether. And I think there's also a depiction of hell as well, lots of scary sort of like smoke and mirrors. And the last place you go before you exit this building is just an ordinary room where a Christian leader talks to you and says, well, you've seen what happens if you don't accept Christ. There are people waiting behind that door there who are going to pray with you right now, and you can have Jesus Christ in your heart. So what is it going to be? The sort of life which you've just seen, or the world of Christianity? And
it's a hard sell. I mean,
they're still going, I think.
Yeah, he opens the door and he says, you've got 5 seconds, I'm going to count to 5, and if you don't come through this door, you are damned. And they even depicted a scene from Columbine, the shooting of Columbine. Think of those poor parents hearing about this, their kids' deaths being used in such a horrendous sales tactic for a church, effectively. Well, people who do normal Halloween and dress up and like to frighten kids when they come to the door and then give them some candy, that's one version of frightening people. This is literally trying to put the fear of God, in inverted commas, to these people and scare the living shit out of them. So they start giving their life over to this church. It's quite despicable in my mind, and I really recommend that everyone goes and watches this documentary.
I mean, I know there was a DVD, and it's probably on Netflix or somewhere like that. I don't know, but it's a 2001 documentary, and it is really in the category of WTF.
Yeah, it really is. And the poor people, some are in it, where they see the interviews. There's a woman who's been raped, and they're using her to play the rape scene, and apparently the rapist is in the audience. And it's just, you are completely and utterly messing up with people's heads here and offering them no solution, no therapy, nothing like this, just totally messing with them. I mean, this...
And all this because they're terrified of Halloween, which I think is the night of the devil, and yet you go out and there are kids dressed up as Captain America and, what's her name from Frozen and all that. There's nothing particularly satanic about it at all.
No, nothing at all. It's it's sad, it's scary, and really, I don't want to ban things because that goes against what I believe in, but people should be aware that these things exist and your kids are being scared into being indoctrinated into something that you might want them to think about twice.
It doesn't really matter because apparently the world's going to end on October 31st.
I thought it already ended in September. Twice in September.
Yeah, but it didn't come to pass. So,
so Halloween, that's Halloween, and it's going to end because apparently Jesus is on his way back.
Yeah, so according to a video, End Time Prophecies, Jesus will return on October 31st, and that day will lead to the destruction of the planet. And according to this, all the evidence tells us that the end of the world and the end of time will be on October 31st. On that day, which Jesus returns, there will be a polar reversal. Isaiah 24:20 says the earth will crack and shatter and split open. The earth will stagger like a drunk, sway like a hut in a storm. The earth is weighed down by its sins. It will collapse and never rise again.
Well,
that's really great, isn't it? It's very exciting.
I've always wanted to be around during the end of the world. I reckon I'll be good at surviving the end of the world. So let's see if we can make it through till November the 1st.
And seeing Geostorm will be a great way to sort of like, get us all pumped up for that.
Yep, we'll be ready. We'll be ready to... And I guess we should make this a new thing, because it's always the end of the world. It's always just a few weeks or
I've lost track of the end of the world. There's been a few this year. There's this one coming up. The Jehovah's Witnesses are always predicting it.
Yeah, I mean, was 1918 was one of their first ones, but they've had many more since.
1914, 1925, 1975. I don't know if there's any post 1975.
Could it be that they're all wrong, and there isn't going to be an end of the world anytime soon?
Well, maybe it has ended. We just don't realize.
We're living in the Matrix.
Yeah, but I think we should keep an eye on this, don't you think?
I think we should. I think we need to make sure people have a countdown, so they know they have to really enjoy themselves before a certain date. Don't sell all your property just in case. Don't. No. Because I know cults do that.
Keep your kids in college.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't take the Kool-Aid.
End of the world watch or something like that, because this is going to crop up again. I have a feeling October 31st will come and go, and then there'll be another prediction.
I wonder if they'll come up with an excuse, because often they do as well. I want to know what this guy's
as to
excuse
why
was.
didn't, like with what was it, Harold Camping back in 2010 or something like that. He predicted the world a few times,
and he just miscalculated.
Yeah, he was part of Family Radio, and he had a lot of followers, and they sold all their stuff and went up to a mountain or something and waited, and hang on, we're still here.
Yeah, so keep hold of your possessions, keep going to school, keep going to work, but enjoy yourselves, just in case it is. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I think we're going to wrap up this Halloween edition of Talk Beliefs News. And I want to thank you, Neil, so much for coming on yet again. And we're all going to be watching Reason now, and how that is going to be going onward and upwards and bringing reason to the world, because no pun intended, God knows we need it.
Indeed we do.
Okay, excellent. So we're going to come back here same time next week with some more interesting stuff from the world of belief and non-belief. And if you like what you hear, please hit that like button. Please subscribe. If you want to support us on Patreon, please do. That would be wonderful. There's a link in the description below, and we will see you all next week.